Good morning, everyone, and welcome to another exciting and phenomenal session with us here on Webinar Geek. My name is Michaela Thomas, and I am the Marketing Project Manager for MasterStart. And we have an incredible session lined up for you today. On your screen, you will see that I have another person with me in the room. This is Gaylyn Fletcher, and I won't do too much of an intro for her because she's going to obviously share her story, and we'll get started with that in a minute. So I'll give everybody a couple minutes to join us. Again, say hello in the chat. We really want to hear where you're coming from. And of course, hope you're having a phenomenal session with us. So just before we get started and before we dive in, I do just want to tell you a bit more about who we are at MasterStart, and we can go from there. So let me share my full screen and we can get started. Okay, so our topic for today is what corporates can do to close the soft skills gap in South Africa. We are very excited, as I said, and are hopefully going to have a great session today. What will happen is after my introduction, I will hand over to Gaylyn here with me. She will do her incredible presentation. There will be lots of interaction, ladies and gentlemen. So please use the chat. We're going to be using another platform as well to get you interested and excited. So please make use of it. We love your feedback as well. So get ready, get your notebooks out, take some notes, and we will have a Q&A session at the end. So do not worry, do not fret. We are here to answer any questions that you have, but we will move on to that at the end. So who are we here at MasterStart? So MasterStart is an EdTech company, and we are here to help you and your employees and teams reach their full potential as future business leaders by providing practical and relevant upskilling and reskilling online courses in collaboration with leading business schools. Some of these include Gibbs, Wits, and Richfield, and Coventry, and Cambridge Spark. There are lots in our remit, so we are very proud of those. And phenomenal industry experts. We offer a supportive and connective learning environment that fosters peer-to-peer learning and creates a fun and meaningful community. So join us for a rewarding learning experience that is directly applicable to the workplace, which we are very excited about. So that's just a little bit more about who we are at MasterStart. I didn't start the last time with who we are. It's good to see all of you making use of the chat. Welcome, everyone. Thank you so much, Leonie, for joining from Jeffreys Bay. A lot of people from Joburg this morning. Oh, we have a Letu from Cape Town, Jody from Cape Town. Cape Town weather seems to be clearing up, which I like. A bit of sunshine always does good for the soul. Again from Joburg. Morning, Melanie from Tiger Falls. Awesome stuff. All right, ladies and gentlemen. So I think without further ado, what I'm going to do is hand over to our phenomenal speaker here, Gaylyn. And again, a big, big thank you to her for joining us this morning and sharing in her incredible wisdoms. And I hope you all have a phenomenal session. Gaylyn, over to you.
Thank you, Michaela. Okay, I'm going to share my screen so long. Yeah, lovely to be here this morning, and thank you so much for the invite. Okay, there we go. So, as Michaela mentioned, closing the soft skills gap in our country. Another way to look at it, people skills, also known as core skills or common skills, non-technical skills, and recently rebranded as power skills. I saw a report where they are saying that these are the skills that everyone needs, whether you are leading a team, whether you're leading yourself, whether you are leading an organization. These are the power skills that are needed. We know two things, whatever we call it, if it's soft skills, people skills, power skills, we know that now in our post-COVID world, we need these more than ever. They are necessary at any level for success in an organization. And the second thing we know is we have a gap. So I'm going to share my perspective today. It's just one perspective. So as Michaela said, an interactive discussion. I'd love to hear your perspective. I'd love to hear your frustrations, your challenges, and just carrying on the conversation of how we can close this skills gap. I've divided our session into three main parts. I'm going to start with introductions. Then I'm going to share a framework that I've been working on and developing over many years. I've spent about 15 years in corporate, and about 5 years running my own business. So I've been in corporate, and then I've been looking at corporate from the outside, from a coaching and consulting point of view. So with the experience that I've got, with the learnings, I want to share this framework with you. And hopefully one or two of the elements you'll be able to take back to your workplace, whether you're leading a team, an organization, yourself, even in a personal capacity, not necessarily in a professional capacity, because the two aren't necessarily separate. Our personal selves come to our professional workplaces. So we can't really distinguish between the two. And then, as we mentioned, a cool discussion. Okay, starting with introductions. About me. My name is Gaylyn Fletcher. I run a coaching and consulting business called the CreativeLeadership. I'm absolutely fascinated by human behavior, and I use my understanding of people, the nuances of the complex creatures that we are, to help companies become healthier and people happier. So we all react in a psychological way, and we all respond in a behavioral way. So understanding these different nuances, I'm able to work from a consulting or a coaching point of view with people, with understanding what makes them tick, what drives them. And ultimately, when it comes to working with people, those soft skills are so important. So I'm currently in Cape Town. I divide my time between Cape Town, Johannesburg, and just recently Saudi Arabia. I'm working on a big project there. So it's lovely to be interacting online from wherever in the world that we are. I saw a few people had mentioned, I think they said Witbank in the chat box, Emma Lahleni. So I was born in Middelburg in Mpumalanga. So it's so lovely that this virtual world enables us to connect from wherever we are. So my LinkedIn profile, 4 distinct roles. LinkedIn makes it very easy to put these roles in a cool little summary. So for me, I'm an organizational development specialist, an integral coach, a facilitator, and an Enneagram practitioner. So I haven't always played these roles, but what I've always loved is numbers. And that was when I first started, when I left school, my love for numbers. I studied business science at UCT, so I majored in finance and accounting. And it's just having that tangible outcome when it comes to numbers. After graduating, I traveled to the US and to Australia for a year or so. And then I settled in London, where I worked at the Natural History Museum, working with their bank reconciliations. So love numbers, but also loved going into that museum every single day. And I think it's one of the most visited museums in the UK. So that was really special. Came back to South Africa, I think it was about 2004. And I wanted to focus more on the finance side of my qualification as opposed to the accounting. So I started doing a little bit of treasury work. I worked for MasterStart, and I looked after their forward exchange contracts for their imports. But there was always something, I wanted a little more, and I didn't really know what that was. So I explored options for a while, and then I changed completely and became a financial journalist. So I started working for a company called Moneyweb. And I remember going for an interview with the CEO, and I said, look, I haven't studied journalism. So he said, if you can read a balance sheet and you can read an income statement, I can teach you to write. So started at Moneyweb. I was there for about 6 years and probably got a promotion every year or so. I was phenomenally fortunate. It started with a financial journalist, and then I moved over to radio. So I was the radio producer for 1 business radio show, then 3 business radio shows, then 3 business radio shows and a TV show. We had a show on CNBC Africa called Power Lunch. Then it was a broadcast manager. Then it was head of broadcasting. So very fortunate to do live radio broadcasts from the World Economic Forum in Davos, Switzerland in 2010 and 2011. And then I moved on to the MultiChoice group, where I spent about 8 years. I started as a contractor. So it was just for a 2-year project, and it was looking at trying to fix the on-air errors that were on the Mnet channels, CakeNet channels, Mzansi Magic, the movie channels. So just trying to, the company had grown so quickly that I'm sure many of you have DSTV and might have seen a wrong episode or a couple of incorrect adverts going out. So my role at that time was trying to understand that entire value chain and how to fix those errors along the way. About 18 months into that project, I got offered a permanent role as a head of department looking after logistics for all the international content from Hollywood, from Nollywood, from Riverwood, so Nigeria's film and television industry and Kenya's film and television industry. So the international content as well as the local content. And then, probably I was at the company for about 8 years. In that time, I did have the opportunity to design my own department. Eventually, looking at corporate services across sub-Saharan Africa, reporting to the group CEO for general entertainment. And it was pretty much my dream job. My portfolio included corporate communication, brand and reputation management, CSR, knowledge management, stakeholder management, process optimization, business analysis. So a little bit of everything. And my favorites, organizational culture. So I left at the end of 2018 to start my own company to really focus on my favorite element, which is people. So I'd had many opportunities while at MultiChoice to study, to further my skills. So I did a PMD at Gibbs Business School. I did a Prince 2 accreditation, a project management accreditation. And then I was thinking about perhaps doing my MBA. And then I realized that you can have the best widget, the best idea, the best product, the best service offering. And a lot of MBA covers those commercial aspects, covers the operational aspects, covers strategy. And there is the people element, but I wanted to focus solely on people. So that was when I decided to do my master's in organizational psychology, because without the people, the best idea, the best widget, the best products, eventually it's going to not be sustainable. So I've given you quite a mouthful, and I've probably puffed it up on purpose because I have left the most important bits out. So I want to do another introduction, but I want to include those important bits. So, failure, rejection, depression, and demotion. These have also defined my career. And these have been milestones that I, at the time, didn't appreciate. But looking back now, they were game changers for me. Failure, I failed maths, science, and accounting in my June exams in Standard 9, or I think it's grade 11. I had recently changed schools. As I mentioned, I come from a small town in Middelburg, and I'd moved to a all-girls boarding school in the city, and I was completely out of my depth. So failed those June exams, and yes, somehow picked up my socks and managed to matriculate the following year. I also nearly failed first year varsity. So coming from that small town and going to the big city of Cape Town, too much freedom. And my dad and I were called in by my professor, and he said, you've got to do something, otherwise you're going on the 5-year plan. as opposed to the degree, which was 4 years. So big changes had to be made there as well. Rejection. I remember searching for jobs while I was living in London, and it was just rejection after rejection after rejection, and it's pretty tough at the time. Coming back to South Africa, the previous introduction I gave, I just sort of segued into a job at MasterStart, but that took a while. So yeah, rejection. Depression, I did battle with that at one stage. I did not get on well with my boss. And for me, relationships and work are very important. So I really battled. I remember waking up, showering, and getting straight back into bed because I just did not want to go into the office. And demotion. So that head of department role that I talked about at MultiChoice, looking after the logistics for all the content, the international and the local content. I had started as a specialist, and then because I was pretty good at my role, I got promoted to look after a team. So I became a generalist, and again, completely out of my depth. I had learned about how to lead a team in textbooks. I'd actually gone on a few leadership programs at MultiChoice, but when I was actually in it, I couldn't cope. So got demoted. So at the time, one of the worst things ever to happen to me, but looking back, also one of the best things, as I mentioned before, a defining moment, because it then shifted my focus to the soft skills, because I've got all that alphabet soup behind my name, all those technical qualifications. But what gets us through life is the soft skills. So that is me. That is my story. And I'd like you to please introduce yourself now. So as Michaela mentioned earlier, pretty interactive. I'm going to stop sharing my screen now, and I want us to answer some Menti questions. Just let's go. I'm going to share a new screen now, and I'll explain what I mean about Menti. Michaela, you seeing that all right?
Yes, indeed.
Marvelous. Okay, so Menti.com is just an interactive platform to hear from participants. So if you can please take out your phones and just go connect to the internet and type in www.menti.com. I'm actually also going to do it. Michaela, are you also doing it?
As we speak.
Okay, so the code, our unique code for this presentation, because it asks you for a code, is 64 30 86 52. So you put that into the little box. Oh, okay, there we go. When someone says soft skills, what 3 skills pop into your head? Okay, so this is a little word cloud, and the more times someone mentions a specific skill, the size of that word will get a little bit bigger. So we can see a few people have mentioned communication. Conflict resolution is also popping up there. Empathy. Leadership. Wow. Okay, emotional intelligence is now popping up there, and listening. Very cool. Oh, I see there's also a little EQ there. So emotional intelligence. So we'll give it a minute. I'm not sure how many participants we have. We're sitting at about 35 replies so far.
We have about 63 people who are watching us live.
Oh, marvelous. Okay. And I see we're doing quite well for time, so I can give it a minute. Oh, time management's now popping up there is a little bit bigger. Kindness, love that. Presentation skills, active listening. When I was prepping for this webinar, I did think about giving a list of soft skills because I've got a list of about 180, which is a little bit ridiculous, but it does go into quite a lot of detail. But then I thought I'd be cheeky and not provide the list. I wanted to see what just pops into your head. Okay, so still see communication, empathy, listening, time management. Okay. I'm going to click onto the next slide. Oh, kindness has got a little bit bigger there. Okay. Thanks everyone for submitting. I'm going to click on the next slide, and then on your phone screen, it will also change. So I've taken 12 soft skills. I did a little bit of a cross-reference with the most popular, the most in demand, the most researched. I've been a bit cheeky and I've taken communication out. So on your phone, you'll see all 12. And then I want you, please, to rank them. What you think is super important, medium importance, or not so important. And you get a little slider that you can move with your finger. Okay. They're all looking pretty important. And this might be a little bit difficult because how do you differentiate on the importance? But in the same token, being a master at all 12 of these is not easy. And perhaps if you think about yourself personally, where do you want to start your focus? Or if you're thinking about yourself in a professional capacity, where do you want your team to focus? Where do you want you to focus in your workplace? If you are responsible for learning and development, if you create support for something like soft skills, where do you focus? Let's just do another minute or so. I see emotional intelligence, interpersonal skills, resilience, conflict resolution. So what's really standing out for me is that they're all super important. But so often we can't have them all, or if we're going to focus on a learning and development strategy in the workplace, do you start with all of them and just have like a scattergun approach, or do you go more streamlined, and where do you start? Michaela, should we give it another minute?
Yeah, I think so.
Cool. Oh, I see work ethic has popped up now at super important. So conflict resolution, emotional intelligence, leadership, and work ethic. And so many of them are interlinked, which is what I'll talk about in a moment as well. Okay, so 44 responses. Thank you everyone. I save the dates and then I'll share it with Michaela. Let me stop sharing. Okay, go back to this screen. Even though I've been doing this for years, I still sometimes doubt myself with where I'm going to share. Okay, Michaela, you seeing that?
Yes, I am.
Marvelous. Okay. So, as I wrap up the introductions, it's probably the longest introduction you've ever gone through, but doing it for a reason, because it's also about traditional approaches that I want to introduce you to. They won't come as a surprise to you, but more of an opening for our chat today on how we close that soft skills gap. So there's no lack of research out there, workplace trends. I've compiled the next couple of slides based on my learnings, what's worked, what hasn't worked. In all the corporates that I've worked at, we've implemented one of these or a combination of them. So I just wanted to go through them individually. So firstly, from a personal point of view, as I mentioned, we can't, our personal selves do come to our professional workplaces. So if you're looking to improve your skills, your soft skills, firstly, it's identifying. You might be very strong at one, but you might need to develop certain other areas, asking for feedback from friends, from family, from work colleagues, stepping out of your comfort zone, thinking critically, not just taking things at face value, finding online courses. There are loads out there. So, but it's important to go to a reputable service provider. Actively listening, that is a definite skill. There is definitely a difference between hearing something and listening. Improving writing skills, taking on a leadership role, not necessarily in the workplace. It might be as part of a community, or it might be at a family gathering when you're in charge of organizing something. Communicating often, and then that self-reflection. It's not just all about action, because you can't have action without self-reflection. And if you want to go faster, you've got to take a break. So that's from a personal point of view. So the traditional approach from a professional point of view, the start is still identifying those skills. So a company can't be everything to everyone. So in the same way, the people function or the HR function, you can't try and do it all. But based on the company vision, based on what the company wants to achieve, based on what the company, the industry it's in, what are those skills that the workforce needs to really be good at? Include in induction and onboarding programs. So right as soon as you've hired those new employees, include those soft skills workshops right from the get-go. There's also lots of research done and lots of companies offering a gap analysis. So having a look at when you've identified the skills, where do we need to get to? Where are we now? And then looking at that gap and doing it per employee and having that skills map, that development plan, because we're all different. So one person's starting point may be a little bit ahead than another person's, but it's understanding those individual requirements from your employees. Providing training, whether it's in-house training or outsourcing that training, and encouraging teamwork and mentorship. I cannot stress this one enough because this is also work that I do. So team dynamic workshops and helping people understand what mentors are. So often it's done in an informal capacity, but putting that mentorship role or giving that to someone, it can be a game changer where you hand a little bit of your knowledge onto others in the workplace. Offering opportunities to reflect. We're in a high performance society, work culture. It's always what is the next one. We don't often celebrate those small wins and we don't often take time to reflect. And if you, as I said before, and something that I've had to really think about because my default is action, but it's if you want to go faster, you need to take a break. So it really hit home for me when I was thinking about F1 drivers going around that racetrack. The reason why they can go so fast is they have that break. So I love English, so I think that's why I really love this. But they've got that BRAKE. They can push that accelerator because they've got that break. And showing up in the real world, we push our accelerator, but we so often forget to take that BREAK. Offering leadership opportunities, not necessarily promotions. It might be a leadership opportunity for employees to run a mini project or to host a team event. So, but it's just having those specific leadership opportunities where you get to lead other people. Providing coaching, again, cannot stress this enough. As I mentioned before, I'm an integral coach, and it was part of me studying coaching was I was fortunate enough to have a coach while at MultiChoice. I didn't necessarily agree because if looking back now, a coach was offered at the time as an intervention. So if there was a bad apple, and coaches were also offered, well, they weren't offered, it was more you had to request one. So the research that I've done on coaching and the studying that I've done on coaching, it's providing it from the get-go. It's not an intervention. It's a way of working. It's a way of living in a way, if we think about the coaching mindset, and then leading by example. So I'm going to share one slide in particular where this underpins a lot of the work that I do. The next slide is still sticking with the traditional approach with a personal point of view, but looking at it from evaluating a candidate's soft skills or identifying an employee's soft skills. So some of you might be in recruitment. So if you want to try and get that foundation stronger even before the employees in the workplace, then using online tools to pre-screen candidates before an interview, then asking those specific questions, the behavioral, the situation, the problem-solving questions, where you can see the candidate demonstrating their knowledge. Finding out which soft skills the candidate thinks will lead to success in the role. Because so often with a job description, yes, we put the technical competencies, put those soft skills, but what does it actually mean? How real and relatable is it and relevant is it to the candidate? And are they able to articulate what soft skills they need for success in that particular role? You could also ask the candidate to rate their soft skills from strongest to weakest, just to get an understanding of where their head is at. You can observe the candidate's physical and social cues throughout the interview. Often there I say, don't do this alone. We all have one form of bias or another, so do it with 2 or 3 people. Discuss the candidate's soft skills with their references. Then from an employee's point of view, identifying what soft skills they have and then what they're super strong at and where they need a little bit more development. So observing them on the job, observing their composure when under pressure, observing professionalism and body language, asking for feedback from people who work with them, and then performing regular one-on-ones. So as I've said before, traditional approach, this has come from many years of working in corporates. It's come from some PhD research, not mine yet. It's come from online research. It's come from books. I even decided to ask ChatGPT. So yeah, there was a full list that came up. So they work, they do work. But what I want to introduce you to is the framework that I use. So I'm still using a lot of the traditional approaches, but my perspective is a little bit different. But before I go into a little bit more detail with that, I'd just like to hear a little bit more about your challenges. So just the last Menti question, they're open-ended. So I'm going to stop sharing that screen. Share. We'll go to audience challenges and present. Okay, so the code is different this time. So you probably closed the window previously. So it's www.menti.com and it's 34 82 59 14. And they're closing the soft skills gap. What are your major challenges? So those are open text boxes. So just write your biggest challenge. What is keeping you up at night? Lack of support from management. When to show empathy? When? Being able to distinguish, very important. Okay, there, lack of management, understanding and support. Reluctance of leadership. Well, hopefully there is a lot of management, executive teams on this. Time management. I struggle with procrastinating a lot. Okay, I'm going to be completely honest, so do I. So, and there for me, it's getting to the source of it. So still, there's no magic answer out there. Not prioritized. Lack of self-awareness by leadership. Love that. It's like that person has looked at my next slide. Self-doubt. Again, not prioritized by the executive leadership team. Willingness. Showing ADHD has a real purpose in place, but getting executive management to embrace it and understand the value it brings. Absolutely. Leadership is crucial to coordinate and integrate teamwork and collaboration. Without direction, teams get lost. Absolutely. Democratic dominance, too emotional, not assertive enough. Always giving into their objections, excuses, requests. Wow. So I was only invited for 1 hour, but I just wanted to get a little bit of an understanding of your challenges, because it's a great sample size. You've consciously made the effort to attend this webinar, and there are many people out there that are struggling with the same challenges. So part of me leaving corporate is to try and get to as many other corporates as possible, because so often within a workplace, we have those silos. But if we take a little bit of a step back, companies are also in silos. And so often we don't share learnings, because what works in a retail industry can also work in a financial services industry. So, and thinking about how do you get 1 + 1 = 3. Okay, I'm going to stop sharing that. Let's go back. Okay. So as I've said before, what underpins the framework that I use is something a little bit different. I've looked at it from a different perspective. But as a few of you mentioned before, the biggest challenge is that is the leadership team, is that support. So I've looked at this from a different perspective, because over the years in corporate, I realized that is exactly where the problem lies. So often, the executive team are looking out of the window for solutions, for results, but they're not looking in the mirror. So the fundamental that underpins the framework that I use is that leadership of self. It starts with you. And there are many instances where a corporate has asked for a program. And when I meet with the exec team, when I meet with the leadership team, if they're not getting it, then there's a little bit of hesitation, because I don't want to roll out a full program if it's going to add no benefits in the long term. So there it's taking more of a different approach, and rather speaking to the executive team, the management team, firstly, before rolling it out to the rest of the employees. But if we think about leadership of self, actively developing a confident sense of who you are, taking ownership of what you do, and being intentional about where you are going. So the framework is 3 very simple words that start with a C: core, clarity, and consistency. So from the core point of view, it starts with self-awareness. Again, mentioned previously. So that if there's no self-awareness, it's you are not building a solid foundation. I use the Enneagram as the personality questionnaire in most of the work that I do. It's, for those of you who've not heard about it, it's one of the most powerful personality tools around. It goes to why we do something, as opposed to to what we do. The personality questionnaire industry is valued at billions of dollars, and most corporates use it in one way or the other. The Enneagram can't be used as a recruitment tool, but for those organizations that are serious about closing the skills gap, investing in their employees, that I recommend is the best place to start. And it takes a little while. I know that I've done many presentations and proposals that have gone to friends, associates, colleagues, and then slowly they've gone up the chain. And it might have taken a couple of years, but eventually they reach the, what I'm saying about my years of running a business in different industries, they do reach the head of people, the head of HR, the head of learning and development. They reach that management team. It just takes a little bit of time and consistency. So that third word, I love that word. But starting at the core, the Enneagram, it's creating that common language. So you have that solid foundation. So you are not putting a bandage on a broken arm, and you're not building a house on quicksand. There, understanding that personality assessment, you each have an individual way of showing up in the world. Each of us is unique with our DNA and with our personality structure. So understanding how you tick, because it starts with you. It starts with leadership of self. And even if you have no one reporting to you, you are still a leader. Having that curiosity mindset. If you've got that self-awareness, you've got that self-trust, you're working on your self-development, you're going to get more curious about things. You're going to collaborate more. And then there's also going to be healthy conflict. And just if we think about the word anger, we attach meanings to words. Words are just words. But for some people, anger is a negative. For other, anger is a positive word. But ultimately, it's what you do with it. So by establishing that common language and discussing in a team, what does anger mean to you? What does anger mean to you? And it's talking with compassion and curiosity and understanding that we all have unique strengths, and the team is going to be greater than the sum of its parts where you harness that diversity. So if you think about conflict, some people love it, some people run away from it. But ultimately, what a team needs is healthy conflict. There's Patrick Lencioni's got a model on the success factors of a team, and it starts with trust and then conflict. You cannot have healthy conflict in a team if you don't have that trust. You cannot have that trust if you don't have that self-awareness. And ultimately, as I mentioned earlier, that coaching mindset, that leader as a coach, that's not coming with any judgments. There's a lot of research that has been done, and more the workplace trends are showing that leaders are now operating with a coaching style. From a clarity point of view, at the heart of it, Brene Brown says, clear is kind, but we often forget that. So running an organization, does everyone really know what the vision and the values are of the company? Clarity is communication with comprehension. It's not just communication and sending out an email and knowing that everyone's heard. Internal communication in particular, I think, is one of the most underrated tools when it comes to employee engagement and soft skills, because ultimately you want engaged employees. You want engaged employees to take pride in what they're doing. How are they going to take pride in what they're doing? If you connect hearts, because if you can connect with hearts, you can train minds and you can train hands, then they'd be more open to receiving feedback on perhaps those soft skills where there's a developmental area. If there's clarity, organograms, roles and responsibilities, where does everyone's roles and responsibility begin and end? There's ownership and accountability. Clarity leaves more space for connectedness, having those candid conversations, having those courageous conversations, and perhaps Managers, maybe there is a case where they don't know what they don't know. But I know when I was a manager, I wanted to focus on the tangible outputs. So it's give me the data to back it up. And there's data out there on the benefits of coaching, the benefits of mentorship, the benefits of investing in soft skills. Ultimately, it goes to that organizational culture. And you don't leave a company because of the role. You leave a company because of the people. And then lastly, consistency. My favorite quote, everything on the other side of consistency. And both from a personal and a professional point of view, it's little bits add up. Little by little, a little becomes a lot. What does consistency do? Creates momentum, allows for measurement, enables accountability, establishes reputation, keeps you relevant, maintains your message, amplifies skill level, builds commitment, and it's a long-term investment. So if you think about investing in soft skills, it goes to a different part of the brain. We've got our brainstem, we've got our frontal cortex, and we've got our limbic center. Our brainstem is the automatic part, the breathing. We're not really aware of that. The functioning, the automatic bodily responses. Prefrontal cortex is wired for those hard technical skills. So there's your rationalization, your logic, your processing. That's what happens in that part of the brain. Your limbic center, those are your emotions. Those are the things. And that is where that emotional intelligence comes from. And learning those soft skills from repetition, from attitude. So just the consistency of it. As I wrap up, I just want to share a slide or share a quote. What if I train them and they leave? What if you don't and they stay? So as mentioned, it is a long-term investment. It's not a overnight tick boxing, focus on soft skills, A, B, and C. Let's send them on that course and then it's sorted. The same in a personal capacity. Perhaps then it's also learning a soft skill, how you approach management in a different way of asking nesting. Just as a little recap, the traditional approaches do work, but what I've shared with you today is a different perspective at it. But ultimately, it starts with you. It starts with looking in the mirror and not looking out the window and being intentional about it. And I see we have about 7 minutes. I know Michaela said she wasn't strict time if we went over for 1 or 2 minutes, but I know some people might need to leave at 11. So Michaela,
No worries at all.
Okay.
So I just wanted to start by saying thank you for a phenomenal presentation and for sharing your wisdom and your story. I think I didn't mention that when we started, but really a lot of what we're trying to do with the series is just share phenomenal stories. And I think yours is one that just speaks to, as you said, like it's both about courage and, winning and getting ahead, but it's also about realizing those moments that you have learned the most. So I really, again, want to hold you in that space and say thank you so much for sharing. It has been, there's not enough notebook space. But what I'm going to do is I'm going to ask everybody who's watching at the moment, if you have any questions for Gaylyn now, pop them in the chat. We already have one from Jody. He says, can you recommend some of the online tools you referred to for evaluating soft skills? So maybe there's a couple, Jody, we can send you. I'll ask Gaylyn to send those to me as well. But is there any off the top of your head that you can think of to share?
You are the experts. So, so Michaela, I'm throwing that right back at you.
No, absolutely. So here at MasterStart, we are really, really, I think we really are in a great position to help you there, Jody. We have some phenomenal soft skills, or we call them power skills here at MasterStart, because I think I wrote a little diagram here. So soft skills, as you said, Gaylyn, are human skills. And humans connect, and the power of human connection, there is no count for it. So power skills are what we specialize in, and I think Jody, if you want to reach out to us, we can do so as well, and get you really started on evaluating those soft skills. There we go. Power skills for your team. Cara says, thank you, much appreciated. Hope we can connect further. Of course. So as Gaylyn has mentioned at the beginning, you can review this session. It is recorded. You can see her on LinkedIn. She is there to help and assist as well. So please do feel like you can reach out. This has been truly amazing and emotional, to be honest. You've given me some hope that I'm heading in the right direction, even though it's not easy at times. Thank you so much for sharing. I think that is true of a lot of us here on this call today. Being so close to people every day is one of the most rewarding, but one of the hardest jobs to take on. So again, thank you so much. And we hold you in the space, and we thank you for your feedback. Thank you for the webinar. It's come at the right time, says Nomboso.
Sorry, Michaela, can I just comment on that?
Yes, of course.
It's so often we don't realize, like when it comes to, because we all need to build a muscle. Like skills, it's about building muscle. But in order to build muscle, we've got to break muscle. So if we think about the biological part of our cells, so it's, and again, at the time, and I don't want to take away from the toughness of it, but know that by breaking muscle, you're building muscle. So Conrad, thank you for sharing that.
Yes. Eugene says, problem I have with corporates. I've approached many corporates with soft skills training for their staff. The standard reply is we don't have enough time to allow staff this training. How do I approach this differently? I thoroughly enjoyed this webinar. I look forward to the next one. I'll tell you more about the next one shortly. But yeah, how Gaylyn, I think this is a question for you. How should you approach your teams internally and externally? If you want to approach people and say, this is what we need, please, we need to do this. How would you go about it?
So if I think about when I was at MultiChoice and getting 200, 300 emails a day, I couldn't get to them all day. So what really stood out for me is if there was a hand-delivered note or if there was a phone call. So, or even if there's something in the subject line. So don't let it be a generic email where you can see from the get-go, sometimes my name is spelled incorrectly, or I'm called Sarah, because then I know that it's just been this bulk email. But understanding that company and knowing, well, definitely, I think for most people out there running businesses, it's about that return on investment. So understanding the organization that they're in, and the return on investment is going to be more. The productivity is going to increase. Innovation. You're going to take less time to do something. So grab their attention by putting something really cool in the subject line, and then get straight to the point with tangibles. Don't waffle.
Absolutely. I agree. Thank you so much for that. Kevin says, I'm currently on our BMD course. I love it, Business and Management Development. For those who don't know, it's one of our courses here at MasterStart. This has been very insightful and helpful. So thank you. Someone says, at Gaylyn, random question. Did you perhaps work with Ruby at MultiChoice? She's my current HOD. There we go. Some connections.
Did not. I think there were about 10,000 people at MultiChoice when I was there. I tried to get to know them all, but no, Ruby doesn't ring a bell. Sorry, Jody.
No worries. And then Catherine says, unfortunately, I joined a bit late, but I enjoyed the last 30 minutes. Please advise on how we can access the recording. So guys, as we wrap up, don't forget that we are obviously recording the session. You will be sent an email. If you registered for this, you'll be sent an email within the next 24 hours, and you can click and replay this at your leisure. You can, take some notes again on the slides. I think the first time we sort of listen to information, the second time we sort of retain it. So come back and give it a rewatch and let us know your thoughts. So as we sort of wrap up and we make our way towards the end, please keep asking your questions. I do want to share to you what is coming next in our series, of course. This is probably one of the better webinars I've attended lately, well presented and narrative. Thank you. I agree, Rashan. Mentimeter is honestly the answer to all tension. It's better than sliced bread. And I'm so grateful that that Gaylyn has made use of it today. So what's coming next for us, guys, just to keep you interested and excited for the next one. On the 29th of March, we will be hosting a session with Dr. Manti Grobler. She'll be talking about balancing technical expertise and power skills in the modern workplace, strategies for successful leadership. So how do we hold both, a technical specialized skill, and how do we talk about our soft skills, our EQ? How do we hold that in leadership? And some of the skills should be touching on or talking to is curiosity, courage, creativity, imagination, and empathy. So we are just building on it. We are making momentum towards sort of put into practice. But again, just again from me today, I just want to say a huge thank you to you, Gaylyn. It has been insightful. I'm going to come back and read these notes. And Zema says, I also joined late. Thanks for this. Thank you for such a great informative session. It really is powerful, guys. Please share this link with those you think need to watch this. It's not just for obviously keeping with ourselves, and we want to keep these sessions sacred and special, but please do feel like you can share this link with whoever needs to read this or listen to this. It is a wonderful free resource, and we really want to make sure that the right people at the right time hear the right information. I think that's key. Melanie says, thank you. So yeah, Gaylyn, I'm going to ask if there's any final thoughts or comments from you before we wrap up.
Thank you to everyone for showing up, and thank you for the great interaction. As Michaela and I have both mentioned, let's keep the conversation going. We're on LinkedIn. I've had many conversations with the MasterStart team, and their hearts are in the right place, and their heads are ready to help you. And yeah, so am I. So thank you again.
Thank you so much, Gaylyn. Well, I'll say a hearty goodbye. Please continue. If you have any questions, to post them in the chat. You can contact us. Go to our website at www.masterstart.com, and you can always try and contact us through that. But we will finish with an assessment at the end of this. So when I finish the webinar, you guys can answer a few questions if you'd like. But for now, from me and from Gaylyn here in Cape Town, we want to say a big thank you for joining, and we hope that you have a phenomenal day and week further. And I always wave at the end of sessions just to be a little weird. Find your weird and be proud of it. So I'm going to wave and say thanks to everybody for joining. Bye.
Thanks, Michaela. Thanks, everyone. Bye-bye.